In this video, we're going to cover the major places to park your money to make you a return. That is real estate, stocks, cryptocurrency, bonds, and yes, even high yield savings accounts. I think each and every single one has a place in a balanced, well put together portfolio. And I think based on your goals and what you want to accomplish over the next decade will dictate where to put that money. With that said, I think it's very, very important that we listen to experts in each one of those fields, that we take their knowledge and put it into our own brain so we can make better decisions about our financial future. So the goal for this video is to go over each and every single one of these asset classes and give you a good understanding of what is going on in the market based on each one of these asset classes. After this video, over the next few days, we're going to go over each asset class individually. So there will be a video about stocks in depth, a video about bonds, crypto, real estate, high yield savings accounts, individual videos, and we're going to dive in depth and show you how I would personally park my money in each one of these asset classes. So if that is of interest to you, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell notification. Let's get right into the rest of this video. Now, I think in order to best invest, we need to truly understand what's going on in each one of these markets. So let's run through what has happened in the last few years in each one of these markets, and let's try to use that knowledge to forecast what may happen in the next few years, as that is the time horizon that most people are looking at when it comes to their investments today. Stocks. What is the environment that is taking place right now in stocks, and how can we use the previous 10 years to figure out what may happen? Well, first and foremost, we need to understand what affects the stock market. So when it comes to the stock market, we are talking mostly about index funds, right? Broad-based funds that you can park a lot of your money into. Now, these funds either track the general S&P 500, some form of an index, or they track a sector in the market like tech, like value, like dividends. Now, what we need to understand is over the last 10 years or so, tech stocks in particular have had a field day, making their investors lots of money. Anywhere from about 2009, 2010, the previous recession started to end, and we started to move into a period of free money. We also started to move into a period of major innovation in most of these tech stocks. Take Netflix, take Apple with its iPhone, take Amazon exploding into a global dominant marketplace. Couple that with basically free, very low interest rate money that these companies could get a hold of, and you had massive growth and sometimes overvaluation in these companies that outpaced their fundamentals. A great example of this is Tesla. While it is a very innovative company, over the last 10 years, Tesla stock has exploded massively in valuation. Now we have to talk about what has happened in the last couple of years that is changing this playing field. Inflation has gone through the roof, mostly because of a ton of money that has been printed by the federal government, but also because of supply chain issues that we are still dealing with. What that has produced is a massive amount of inflation that the government has tried to counter by raising interest rates. When you raise interest rates, fundamentally, stocks look less attractive. This is for a couple of reasons. One, because if interest rates rise, bond rates tend to rise as well, which means that you can either pick between stocks that are inherently risky or bonds that are inherently less risky. Money is moved from stocks into bonds. This lowers stock prices. The other issue that affects stocks, predominantly tech stocks, is that when interest rates rise, the cost to borrow money in order to keep their growth also rises. This tends to, in the eyes of investors, lower the valuation of tech stocks. On top of that, we have a recession looming around the corner, and a lot of these companies have had to cut back or cut their workforce, which also, in a sense, cuts growth. All this has culminated into tech stocks absolutely being decimated over the last couple of years. The question is this an opportunity? Because tech stock prices have come down so low that maybe potentially it might be a time to invest some money in. Well, we have to look at both sides of the coin. Peter Schiff, for example, says that there is still some pain in the market to come, and he believes that over the next year to 2 years, stocks, especially in the tech sector, will come down. Peter Schiff also believes that value plays are where the money is going to be made. Value plays means companies that are of fundamentally strong, sound value. Also dividend plays, companies that give dividends to their shareholders. Now let's talk about cryptocurrency. Over the last 2 years, cryptocurrency has been all the rage. Now take it from someone who's been monitoring cryptocurrency since 2016, 2017. I've seen the boom and bust cycles that cryptocurrency tends to go through. Now, cryptocurrency is one of those wild cards. It can swing high and it can swing very low. And I think that is why when it comes to a well-built portfolio made to weather the storms of time, I think cryptocurrency needs to be treated as a speculative asset. What is a speculative asset? As the name implies, this is an asset that may not be value-based and may be speculative in nature. This means that the potential for large gains, if the technology favors it, will be high. But the potential for total destruction is also high. Usually when it comes to speculative assets, they depend on your age. The younger your age, the more percentage of your portfolio you can have in speculative assets. As your age increases and you get close to retirement, the more safe or less risky you want your portfolio to be, you pull back your speculative asset allocation. Now, we have two sides of the coin when it comes to cryptocurrency. We have people like Peter Schiff, who seems to be a bear in many instances, saying that cryptocurrency, Bitcoin in particular, is going to zero. Hooray for us. We also have people like Mike Novogratz, who is a Bitcoin bull, who believes Bitcoin will hit his $500,000 target as well as his $1 million target. He just believes that it will take more time. What do I think? I think that Bitcoin and Ethereum and certain cryptocurrencies have potential to give us utility. But here's the problem with cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency has been around for a while, over a decade. If you look at the same time frame with the internet, 1990s through early 2000s, you also had a huge crash, the dot-com crash. But over that decade, internet-based companies and tech companies have delivered utility and value. Cryptocurrency is in its infancy, but we have to understand that without utility and without a value provided, it is inherently worthless. My concerns with cryptocurrency is it has had a long time to deliver that utility and to deliver that value. And while in some instances it seems to be delivering that utility, it seems to also be taking a very long time for it to come to fruition. Where do we draw the line and say that there is no utility and that there is no value to be given? I'm not sure. That is why cryptocurrency in general makes a very small percentage of my own portfolio, and I believe it needs to remain currently in the speculative assets department of your portfolio. One other thing I want to touch on in regards to cryptocurrency is that I have seen the boom and bust cycles. I've been monitoring cryptocurrency for close to 6 or 7 years, and the last major crash was in 2017, 2018. And what ends up happening is that the major coins tend to survive and all these hype coins tend to die. So when you are building a cryptocurrency portfolio, make sure that you are not only looking for innovators, but you are looking for coins that have been around for a while. Bitcoin and Ethereum come to mind. Now let's talk about the all venerable real estate market. This has been a key player in most people's portfolios for the last 100 years. Now, over the last decade or so, since the last recession, real estate has exploded, and people who have invested in real estate have made an absolute killing, sometimes times 4, times 5, times 10 their money if they use leverage, which most people do. Now, real estate is in a weird spot right now. On one side of the coin, the valuations seem to be through the roof, mostly driven because of the crazy boom in home ownership or home ownership desire during the work from home phase that started about 2020. That coupled with what feels like extremely high interest rates, at least when compared to the last decade, have made real estate seem like it should be overvalued. On the flip side though, remember that at the end of the day, economics is driven almost entirely by supply and demand. And when you look at that, we see a different side to the coin. Demand still highly outpaces supply. And because of this, you have not seen a major crash, even with recession looming, even with high interest rates and even with high pricing, you have not seen a crash in the real estate market. Remember that economics, at the end of the day, at the most fundamental, basic level, is driven by supply and demand. And until supply outpaces demand, we will not see a crash in real estate. The moment supply outpaces demand, you will start to see prices diminish. The moment supply extremely outpaces demand, you will see a crash. That is what happens time and time again in the real estate market. Now, this crash could happen for many reasons. It could happen because of a major recession. It could happen because of an overbuilding of supply. The point being is that real estate right now seems to be stable and solid. Now, with that said, prices are still very high, and we are starting to see some of those supply and demand changes happen due to high interest rates, due to very extremely high prices, and due to a potential recession looming in the distance. We are starting to see a slowdown in how fast houses sell and for how much over asking that they are selling. So if you are looking for extreme growth in the department of appreciation, right now real estate might not be the play. But if you are looking for growth in passive income, as in rental income, real estate is still a key player because rental demand is projected to increase dramatically over the next 5 years. Now let's talk about bonds. Bonds are usually boring, and most people don't really like to talk about bonds because they are so boring and because they are so low when it comes to their returns. With that said, bonds are kind of having a moment. They're kind of in their glow up phase right now. The reason is because bonds are directly tied to federal interest rates, especially if we are talking about federally issued bonds. So because interest rates are rising and because people are moving money out of the stock market, bond interest rates tend to be moving in the right direction. Bonds have traditionally been the most boring asset because they are traditionally very stable and they make up the backbone of most retirees' portfolios. These snail growth portfolios. Now, I don't say that in a bad tone because just like the turtle and the hare, who won the race at the end of the day? The turtle did. Now, while bonds tend to be a very safe asset, what we need to be careful with when it comes to bonds, especially government-backed bonds, is can the US government default on its debt? This has been a point of contention in Congress for many, many years, and every single time, every few years, we seem to have this debate, Republicans and Democrats debating on how to fix or how to raise the debt ceiling. Bonds are currently safe, and they are rated AAA by rating agencies. This means that they have the lowest likelihood to default. That safety and security, while unlikely to change, could change at any moment if the government defaults on its debt. What we also need to realize is that the government is raising interest rates. When government raises interest rates, it is also raising interest rates on its own debt. Now, there are ways for the government to get around this, but at the end of the day, it is going to be more expensive for the government to borrow money from its citizens. This is good for debt holders because your interest rate will be higher, but it is also more risky for debt holders because it makes payment harder for the government. Always remember that when it comes to investing, risk and reward are directly correlated. When something has a higher interest rate, there is usually higher risk associated with it. That is why bonds usually have a much lower interest rate than, say, stocks or real estate. The less risky something is, the less reward that you're going to receive. You can see this even in individual stocks versus indexes. A broad-based S&P 500 tracking index will year over year have a lower return than, say, if you dumped all your money in Tesla in 2010. The problem is when times like this happen, where Tesla crashes and the overall market, while it does come down, does not come down as much. Risk, reward are correlated, and you must remember that. The last thing I want to talk about is high interest rate savings accounts. Now, usually in most environments, savings accounts don't tend to make up an investment portfolio, although there have been times in the past where they may have. Take the 1980s when interest rates were crazy out of control. Savings rates were also incredibly high with very little risk. We are in a time of high interest rates currently. Now, we are not as high as they were in the 1980s, but interest rates for some savings accounts have gone through the roof. These are what's known as high yield savings accounts. Now, these accounts, of course, are not going to be comparable to stocks or other assets when it comes to return, but they will be much, much safer. Any good quality high yield savings account is going to be FDIC insured up to $250,000, which means, again, your money is backed by the US government. These high yield savings accounts are great places to park money that you need in the immediate or in the interim. These places are good to keep your reserve funds, as many people say that we should have at least 6 months of reserve funds in our account easily accessible. This is a great place to park those funds. I'm not going to go over the individual high yield savings accounts, but what I'm going to do is in the description below, I'm going to list a few that offer a good, higher than average return that you can park some of your money into. So I hope you learned something in this video. Over the next few days, we're going to go over each one of these assets individually, and we're going to talk about how I would personally invest my money in each one of these asset classes. So if that's something that interests you, please make sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification. We're going to dive deep. Each video is going to be about an asset. So we'll have one about stocks, one about real estate, one about high yield savings accounts, one about crypto, and one about bonds. And we will dive deeper into each one because each one deserves its own video. And if you want to supercharge your financial future, you need to have a solid understanding about each one of these assets because they should make up a well-balanced portfolio. And if you are looking to grow your portfolio over the next 5 or 10 years, it needs to be well-balanced. Now, it also depends on age. We will talk about that. Your portfolio and the aggressiveness of your portfolio will depend on where you fall in the age range and how close you are to retirement. So we're going to talk about a lot of awesome stuff, a lot of important things for your financial future. My name is Derek, as you already know. We talk about personal finance here. We talk about online business. I've been an entrepreneur for over a decade. I do have my degree in finance, and I love sharing this stuff with other people. So if that is something that is of interest to you, please make sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video.